Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next hour, Trump announces Iran-Israel ceasefire effective 0400 GMT Tuesday. Conditions bind Iran to start first and Israel to join after 12 hours. Iran signals halt to strikes if Israel stops. Iran and Israel trade attacks hours before ceasefire kicks in. West Asia remains on edge. Flights resume in Qatar as airspace reopens following temporary closure after tensions soared in West Asia. The Israel leg of Operation Sindhu begins as 161 citizens from Israel arrive in New Delhi from Amman. 292 more Indians evacuated from Iran also reached Delhi. Health warnings issued as potentially life-threatening heat waves envelops eastern US. High temperatures forecast in Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York and Boston. England need 350 runs while India require 10 wickets as Leeds Test heads into a thrilling Day 5 showdown. Amid intensifying global scrutiny over the Israel-Iran conflict, US President Donald Trump on Tuesday claimed the end of 12-day conflict, saying both sides have agreed to a staggered ceasefire beginning Tuesday. As outlined by Trump, the ceasefire would be a phased 24-hour process beginning at around 0400 GMT Tuesday, with Iran unilaterally halting all operations. Israel would follow suit 12 hours later. Writing on Monday evening on his Truth Social platform, Trump said, and I quote, "Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, the official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful." The US President said the world and the West Asia will benefit greatly from the ceasefire he claims to have brokered between Israel and Iran. Trump, in a social media post, stated that both Israel and Iran approached him for peace almost simultaneously. His statement came shortly after he revealed that a US brokered ceasefire had been accepted by both sides. He described it as a pivotal moment not just for the two nations but for the world at large. He added the future for Israel and Iran is unlimited and filled with great promise. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi refuted Trump's claims, saying no agreement reached or any ceasefire Israel and Iran. He, however, said that if Israel stopped its illegal aggression against the Iranian people no later than 0030 GMT or 0930 IST on Tuesday, Iran had no intention of continuing its response afterwards. Araghchi said the final decision on the cessation of our military operations will be made later. Meanwhile, any comment from Israel on ceasefire is still awaited. Meanwhile, a series of powerful explosions rocked Tehran early Tuesday morning. Warplanes buzzed overhead as explosions shook the north and center of Iran's capital around 2330 GMT. The blasts occurred just hours before staggered ceasefire was due to take effect, with Iran unilaterally halting all operations, according to an announcement by Trump. The Israeli military has meanwhile said it has now detected a third launch of missiles by the Iranians. Previously, in the first two barrages of rockets, there was a direct impact in southern Israel, and the ambulance services are saying that the 3 people are in critical condition and 5 others have been lightly injured from the direct hit. This was a 7-story building in southern Israel that was targeted. The announcement follows an Iranian attack on US forces at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar in retaliation for the US strikes on its nuclear sites. The Qatari authorities said short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles were fired from Iran, which were successfully intercepted by the authorities. The officials confirmed that there had been no impact on the base just outside Qatar's capital, Doha. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi later added that the country is ready to respond again if the US takes any further action. Meanwhile, Trump earlier said Iran had a very weak response and thanked the country's leadership for providing early notice of the retaliatory attack. Earlier on Monday, US Vice President J.D. Vance said Iran was no longer able to build a nuclear weapon after US strikes destroyed its infrastructure. He said that equipment required for building the infrastructure have been destroyed.
Now, Iran is incapable of building a nuclear weapon with the equipment they have because we destroyed it. So that's a very, very big thing. And I think that's what the president is really trying to figure out here, is to build a long-term settlement here to where we can have peace in the region, where our regional allies and, of course, the American people, most importantly, can be secured, but where we can ensure that the destruction of the Iranian nuclear program that has already happened is not something they try to rebuild.
Oil prices have continued to tumble following President Trump's announcement of a ceasefire. The global benchmark Brent crude has dropped another 4% to just over $68 a barrel. That follows a 7% drop in Monday's trading session. Oil prices are now lower than 12 June when Israel first launched an attack on Iran. Global shares rallied and the dollar extended declines on Tuesday after Trump's ceasefire announcement. S&P 500 futures was up 0.6% and NASDAQ futures was 0.9% higher. The MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan jumped 1.8%, while Japan's Nikkei rallied 1.4%. China's blue chips also rose 1%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index gained 1.7%. Taking forward Operation Sindhu, a first batch of 161 Indian nationals evacuated from Israel has arrived in New Delhi this morning. These passengers were evacuated from Israel and moved to Amman, Jordan by road. Welcoming the evacuees, Union Minister for State for External Affairs Pabitra Margarita said the government's evacuation mission remains in full swing. He said the safety and security of Indian nationals abroad remains the highest priority for the government. Meanwhile, another batch of 292 Indian nationals arrived in New Delhi this morning, evacuated from Iran. The Indian nationals were evacuated on a special flight that arrived in New Delhi from Iran amid rising tensions in the West Asia region. Earlier, a special flight carrying 290 Indian nationals and 1 Sri Lankan citizen landed in New Delhi from conflict-hit Mashhad in Iran. India launched Operation Sindhu last week to bring back Indians from Iran and Israel in view of increasing hostilities between the two nations. In other international news, Canada and the European Union on Monday signed a defense and security pact as the transatlantic partners seek to better confront Russia with worries over US reliability under President Donald Trump. The deal was announced after a summit in Brussels between Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa. The pact opens the door for Ottawa to join common procurements under a recently approved $174 billion loan program backed by EU's central budget to boost rearmament. It also paves the way for Canadian defense firms to tap into the schemes, although that requires the signing of a separate deal. The EU is Canada's second biggest commercial partner. Britain signed a similar defense partnership in May, and Australia and the EU announced they had started negotiating another one last week. Meanwhile, European Union President Ursula von der Leyen said EU will not give up its right to make policy decisions in negotiations with the United States to avert higher US tariffs on EU goods.
In general, negotiations are only closed at the moment everything is negotiated. But I'm very clear on some topics that touch the sovereignty of the decision-making process in the European Union. This is for us absolutely untouchable. So we're very clear about that. Of course, we discuss tariff lines. We discuss non-tariff barriers like standards and norms, for example. We discuss strategic purchases. We discuss all these topics. But where it is the sovereign decision-making process in the European Union and its member states that is affected, this is too far.
After the summit, Mark Carney said that Canada and the United States have a chance to build a new economic and defense partnership, but nothing is guaranteed yet.
What options are we considering? I'll give you an open answer. We'll do what's right for Canada. We're working hard to get a deal, but we'll only accept the right deal with the United States. The right deal is possible, but it's nothing's assured.
The US Supreme Court declared the way on Monday for President Donald Trump's administration to resume deporting migrants to countries other than their own. The justices lifted a judicial order that required the government to give migrants set for deportation to third countries a meaningful opportunity to tell officials they are at risk of torture. In fact, they are at a risk of torture at their new destination, while a legal challenge plays out. The brief order was unsigned and came with no reasoning, as is common when the court decides emergency requests. After the Department of Homeland Security moved in February to step up rapid deportations to third countries, immigrant rights group filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of a group of migrants seeking to prevent their removal to such places without notice and a chance to assert the harms they could face. Syrian authorities on Monday announced arrests over a suicide blast targeting a church by the Islamic State group. The shooting and suicide bombing that occurred at the St. Elias Church in Syrian capital claimed lives of 25 people. Syria's Interior Ministry said the suicide bomber was a member of Islamic State. He entered the church, opened fire and then detonated his explosive vest. The ministry also reported arrest of a number of criminals involved in the attack and the seizure of explosive devices and a booby-trapped motorcycle during a security operation near Damascus. The attack fed fears among Syria's minorities that their communities are more exposed to attacks and harassment since Islamic-led rebels toppled former leader Bashar al-Assad in December. And still to come on DD India News Hour. The two-day NATO Summit is set to begin on Wednesday in The Hague, Netherlands. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced a new defense co-production initiative. NASA announces new launch date for Axiom 4 mission.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. In other part of the world, the two-day NATO summit is set to begin on Wednesday in The Hague, Netherlands. The top priority is agreeing on a new defense spending target of 5% GDP that is pushed by President Trump. NATO members will be expected to spend 5% of GDP on defense and security, up from the current 2% target. This includes 3.5% for core defense like troops and weapons and 1.5% for broader areas such as infrastructure and cybersecurity. Currently, 22 of 32 NATO countries meet or exceed the 2% goal, but spending varies widely, with Poland at over 4% and Spain below 1.3%. The new target aims for all members to meet this by 2035. The increase is driven by concerns over Russia's war in Ukraine and possible threats to Europe, along with the US calls for greater burden sharing. The new funds will go toward capabilities like air defense, fighter jets, drones and logistics. However, some countries like Spain have expressed reluctance to fully meet the new spending goals. This is the first time city is hosting the NATO Summit and is under country's largest ever security operation called Orange Shield. Leaders from all 32 member nations are attending the summit, plus Ukraine's Zelensky has made his presence felt with meeting leaders. NATO chief Mark Rutte said this is a quantum leap that is ambitious, historic and fundamental to securing the future.
The defense investment plan that allies will agree in The Hague introduces a new baseline, 5% of GDP to be invested in defense. This is a quantum leap that is ambitious, historic and fundamental to securing our future. The new defense investment plan is the key deliverable for this summit and will be decisive when it comes to ensuring effective deterrence in defense.
Meanwhile, Mark Rutte also said that Spain is not exempt from a defense spending deal after Madrid claimed it would not have to hit the alliance's headline target of 5% of GDP.
NATO has no opt-outs and NATO doesn't know side deals or side deals. So that's on the particular question you ask about Spain. What all allies will do is that, of course, they have the sovereign right and also the flexibility to determine their paths for delivering on the NATO commitments. That means how much they will spend annually, and this is exactly what we are doing. The big difference from the Welsh pledge in 2014 is this, that there will be annual reports on what nations are spending, there will be regular reviews on what is happening.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced Britain's commitment to spend 5% of its economic output on defence. Starmer had in February pledged to increase core UK defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027 and 3% sometime in the early 2030s. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced a new defence co-production initiative on Monday during a short visit by the Ukrainian President to London to discuss his country's defence against Russia. The trip comes on the eve of a NATO summit in The Hague, which Zelensky is due to attend. The two leaders announced the deal in the garden of Starmer's Downing Street residence, where they also met Ukrainian troops being trained in Britain. Speaking alongside Starmer, Zelensky said the deal would help strengthen both nations as he thanked Britain for its support in the conflict against Russia. While Starmer said the both had an excellent bilateral meeting and agreed an industrial military co-production agreement.
And the good result of today's our meeting is this additional decision of co-production. And I think it will be very strong and will strengthen both nations. It's very important, yes, to share our experience, your experience, by the way, first of all, your experience on the battlefield and your knowledge and experience during interflex training missions. So I'm very thankful for this meeting, for the decision of support militarily and financially.
We've just had an excellent bilateral meeting this afternoon. We've discussed the issues across the conflict, what more we can do to support. And I'm really proud that this afternoon we're able to announce an industrial military co-production agreement, the first of its kind so far as Ukraine and the UK are concerned, which will be a massive step forward now in the contribution that we can continue to make.
Earlier, President Zelensky met with the Speaker of the House of Commons of the UK Parliament, Lindsay Hoyle, and the Lord Speaker of the House of Lords, John McFall. President thanked the people, government and Parliament of the United Kingdom for their principled support of Ukraine. During the meeting, the parties discussed continued support and cooperation, transatlantic unity and diplomatic efforts with all allies to stop Russian aggression and bring the conflict to an end. They also discussed the situation in West Asia. Moving on to Russia-Ukraine conflict, waves of Russian drones and missiles in and around Kiev overnight killed 10 people. Residential areas and the entrance to a metro station bomb shelter is said to be damaged less than a kilometer from the US Embassy. Ukraine's Air Force said it had downed 339 of 352 drones and 15 of 16 missiles launched by Russia in the attack on 4 Ukrainian regions. In the area around the southern Black Sea port of Odessa, regional governor said the number of people killed in separate missile attack had risen to 3. Moscow has stepped up drone and missile strikes on Kiev and other Ukrainian cities in recent weeks. Monday's strikes come at a day before NATO's annual summit is held in The Hague, while President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Britain to discuss defense. In a major anti-drug operation, El Salvador's Navy seized 6.3 metric tons of cocaine worth $157 million between June 2 and 10. The burst happened nearly 1,000 nautical miles off the coast, where 5 boats were intercepted. Authorities arrested 17 suspects from Guatemala, Mexico, Colombia and Ecuador. Defense Minister praised the mission, calling it one of the country's biggest blows to drug trafficking. The operation is part of El Salvador's ongoing crackdown on crime, backed by the US Embassy, and reflects the government's tough stance on gangs and narcotics. Tourism and local business in the Dominican Republic came to a halt after massive amounts of Sarasum algae washed ashore in the province of Samana. Boat operators and tour guides in the region reported a sharp drop in excursions as visitors avoided the beaches. Researchers from a regional institute are currently studying the unpredictable ocean currents to better forecast future Sarasum arrivals. Since 2018, the Dominican Republic has been heavily impacted by Sarasum, affecting dozens of beaches and the livelihoods of coastal communities, especially in the popular tourist destination of Samana. Thailand's military has closed border crossings into Cambodia to almost all travelers, including tourists and traders, citing security concerns as tensions between the two Southeast Asian neighbors remain escalated over a simmering border dispute. The deterioration in ties was sparked by brief armed clashes in a border area that left one Cambodian soldier dead late last month. Both governments have since announced measures designed to punish the other, including Cambodia's recent suspension of all Thai fuel and gas imports. Thailand will now restrict all vehicles, tourists and traders from crossing all land border checkpoints in 7 provinces bordering Cambodia, the military said in a statement issued late on Monday, citing security concerns. Indian astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla's Axiom 4 mission to the International Space Station is now eyeing a launch on June 25. The Axiom 4 mission, which marks the return to space for India, Hungary and Poland, was earlier scheduled for liftoff from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida on June 25 on board SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. The mission was originally scheduled for liftoff on May 29 but was then put off to June 8 and then June 10 and then June 1 earlier, when engineers detected a liquid oxygen leak in the boosters of the Falcon 9 rocket, and NASA also detected leaks in the aging Russian module of the International Space Station. The launch was then planned for June 19 and then on June 22nd, which was put off to allow NASA evaluate operations of the ISS after repairs in the Russian module. Global weather news now. Tens of millions of people sweltered across the US Northeast and Midwest on Monday as record high heat disrupted electricity supplies and train travel. Some East Coast trains were halted en route for safety precautions on Monday. Heat warnings, which began over the weekend and are set to continue through the week, were in effect across much of the United States. East Coast officials warned that as the heat combines with humidity, many places could see conditions that feel like 43 degrees Celsius. The National Weather Service warned that nighttime temperatures may not offer respite from the oppressive heat. Greece declared a state of emergency on Chios Island, where hundreds of firefighters have been battling wildfires for a second day as winds further whip up the blaze, causing power cuts and the evacuation of residents. Over 190 firefighters, 38 vehicles, 12 helicopters and 4 water bombers have been deployed to douse the blaze. Island authorities feared the blaze was nearing highly flammable mastic tree, which is used in chewing gum, liqueurs and medicines. Forecasts are predicting a heat wave in the coming days with temperatures of more than 40 Celsius, including in the capital Athens. In the Zabaykalsky region of the eastern Siberia, crews were battling intense wildfires after approximately 350 hectares of area was scorched. Due to the escalating threat, residents of the nearby village of Atamanovka have been evacuated. According to the Ministry of Emergency Situations of the Russian Federation, more than 30 units of equipment, including aircraft, have been deployed to contain the blaze. The region is experiencing extreme heat, with daytime temperatures reaching 35 degrees Celsius, coupled with strong winds creating the conditions that have accelerated the spread of the fire. Still to come on DD Indian News Hour. India hits out at OIC for factually incorrect comments. India's National Security Advisor Ajit Dwal holds a crucial meeting with China's Foreign Minister Wang in Beijing. We revisit the verdict that shook the government and the silence that followed.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome to Lakshadweep, the land of 100,000 islands. The aquatic wonderland of India, an archipelago of spectacular marine gems, colorful coral and crystal clear lagoons. A kaleidoscope of turquoise blue. Each island of Lakshadweep draws in explorers with its unique beauty. Witness idyllic sunsets and pristine beaches of Kavarati. The majestic lighthouse and colorful boat races at Minikoi. Experience water sports in the shallow lagoons of Kadmat. Unwind in the serene setting of Bangaram. Lakshadweep offers a precious heritage of ecology and culture, with rhythmic beats of folk dances echoing through these islands, delighting visitors in traditional folk dances and local artworks. With abundant marine life and mineral resources, the islands are advancing towards a greener, brighter future. Lakshadweep is set to amaze visitors with its breathtaking wonders and picturesque seascapes, in the enduring spirit of incredible India.
You're watching DD Indian News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj, and a quick recap of the headlines. Trump announces Iran-Israel ceasefire effective 0400 GMT Tuesday. Conditions bind Iran to start first and Israel to join after 12 hours. Iran signals halt to strikes if Israel stops. Iran and Israel trade attacks hours before ceasefire kicks in. West Asia remains on edge. Flights resume in Qatar as airspace reopens following temporary closure after tensions soared in West Asia. The Israel leg of Operation Sindhu begins as 161 citizens from Israel arrive in New Delhi from Amman. 292 more Indians evacuated from Iran also reached Delhi. Health warnings issued as potentially life-threatening heat wave envelops eastern US. High temperatures forecast in Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York and Boston. England need 350 runs while India required 10 wickets as Leeds Test heads into a thrilling Day 5 showdown. India's National Security Advisor Ajit Dwal held a crucial meeting with China's Foreign Minister Wang in Beijing. During the meeting, both sides reviewed recent developments in India-China bilateral relations and underscored the need to promote the overall development of India-China bilateral relations, including by fostering greater people-to-people ties. India's NSA also emphasized the need to counter terrorism in all its forms and manifestations to maintain overall peace and stability in the region. Views were also exchanged on other bilateral, regional and global issues of mutual interest. The NSA Dwal is visiting China to attend the 20th meeting of the SCO Security Council Secretaries. India has categorically rejected references to the country at the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Council of Foreign Ministers meeting and termed them as unwarranted and factually incorrect. External Affairs Ministry said that these statements, driven by Pakistan, which has turned terrorism into statecraft, reflect the continued misuse of OIC platform for narrow political ends. It said the OIC's repeated failure to acknowledge the real and documented threat of terrorism emanating from Pakistan reflects a disregard for facts and the global consensus on the fight against terrorism. New Delhi further stated that the OIC has no locus standi to comment on India's internal affairs, including Jammu and Kashmir, which is an integral and sovereign part of India. India said the comments made by Pakistan at the OIC meeting are an attempt to deflect international attention from its own record of state-sponsored terrorism, minority persecution, sectarian violence and failure of governance. Updates related to Ahmedabad plane crash now. Tests are still underway to identify the victims of the deadly June 12 Air India plane crash in Ahmedabad. Authorities have verified the identities of 253 victims so far, out of which 240 are passengers and 13 are non-passengers. Medical superintendent of the civil hospital in Gujarat said a total of 19 non-passengers were identified. Out of them, 6 deceased bodies were handed over to their families based on their facial recognition, while 13 were handed over based on DNA matching. The testing is being done by teams from the FSL and National Forensic Sciences University. The Government of India has decided to extend the cut-off date for exercising the option for a unified pension scheme by 3 months till 30th September of this year. This cut-off date will apply for the eligible central government employees, retirees and the legally wedded spouses of deceased retirees. The unified pension scheme for eligible central government employees was notified by the Ministry of Finance in January this year. As per the regulations, eligible government employees were given a period of 3 months till 30th of this month to exercise their option under the scheme to migrate from national pension system to unified pension system. According to the Ministry of Finance, the decision to extend the cut-off date has been taken in view of the representations received from various stakeholders to extend the date. All right, news just coming in on India's Operation Sindhu. An Indian Air Force C-17 flight evacuated 165 Indian nationals from Israel. They were received by MOS Dr. L. Murugan upon arrival in Delhi this morning. The aircraft landed at 8:45 hours today from Amman, Jordan. Earlier, the first batch of 161 Indian nationals evacuated from Israel arrived in New Delhi around 8:20 this morning. The safety and security of Indian nationals abroad remains the highest priority for the government. And we are being joined by our correspondent Vishal Baristo. Hi Vishal, very good morning. Indeed, safety and security of the Indians living abroad is the highest priority for the government. What's the latest you're getting for us?
Well, absolutely. Very good morning to you, Siddharth. It's quite a relief for these people. They are holding tricolor in their hands and they are waving the tricolor, and they are also very happy. Let me tell you that they have been rescued by the Special Indian Air Force flight C-17, 165 with a number. Earlier, 161 evacuees also arrived at the Indira Gandhi International Airport. So let's talk to them and find out and hear what they have to say. What's your name?
Shivam De.
Shivam, looking into the camera, let us know how has been the journey, how did you contact the embassy and how did you come here?
Okay, so initially we had registered on the Indian Embassy's portal, and after that during the evacuation we got special messages in our WhatsApp because our phone numbers were registered. So we had to re-register again to the embassy website, and after 24 hours they sent us a form to fill it, like the people who are willing to evacuate Israel. And then when we filled up the form, within 24 to 48 hours we got a call from the Indian Embassy, and our flight, they confirmed that whether we will be leaving by flight or not, and then they sent us our details when we are traveling, like yesterday we had to travel. Okay.
Now from here onwards, where are you traveling?
So I will be going to West Bengal. I am from Siliguri.
So has the arrangement been made?
No, not yet. Like I have booked my own flights for tomorrow.
Okay. Now tell me, what do you have to say about the Indian government, the embassy and the Indian Air Force?
So I think as an Indian I couldn't be more thankful for what they did. They took us all the way from Israel to Jordan, and from there to the Amman airport, and rescued us through the Indian Air Force. So I not only me, all the people who are traveling here, they are more than thankful to the Indian government, the Indian Embassy and the Indian Air Force.
Okay. Now let's talk to the lady also looking into the camera. कितने लंबी सफर रहा आपका और कैसा महसूस कर रहे हैं और कहाँ जाने वाले हैं आप?
जी, सफ़र हमारा काफ़ी लंबा था. जब हमें इवैक्यूएशन का नोटिस मिला था तो अर्ली मॉर्निंग हम लोगों को एम्बेसी बुलाया गया था 6:30, और हम लोग वहाँ से जब निकले 7 बजे तकरीबन, तो हमें शाम 7 बजे तक हम लोग अमान एयरपोर्ट पहुँच पाए थे जॉर्डन के, और वो काफ़ी लंबा था. और उसमें मुझे नहीं लगता कि एम्बेसी उस तरीके से हमारी मदद तो की, लेकिन वो पार्ट दूसरी कंट्री में जब आप एंटर करते हो तो सारा फिर जॉर्डन में अगर एंटर किया तो जॉर्डन की गवर्नमेंट ही देखेगी, लेकिन एम्बेसी ने हमें जितनी फैसिलिटी प्रोवाइड करनी है उतनी फैसिलिटी प्रोवाइड करी. लंच पैक दिया उन्होंने, वाटर, मतलब एम्बेसी के लिए हम बहुत थैंकफुल हैं.
Okay, she is very thankful for the Indian Embassy in Jordan. She is accompanied by her husband. क्या नाम है आपका? What do you do?
Doctor, I am a postdoctoral researcher over there in Israel.
Okay. Now, how has been the experience? How is the situation there in Israel right now?
Right now, the situation in Israel is very critical, and as you know, the condition in the Tel Aviv and Haifa, the missiles are falling on Tel Aviv and Haifa, and people are very scared over there. So we are very thankful to the Indian Embassy at Israel and Government of India, our Indian forces who evacuated us from there very safely, and Indian Embassy and Government of India are doing their best job. I must say that they are great.
Yes.
They are great.
I think जॉर्डन जो एयरपोर्ट था वो रात में खाली हो चुका था, तो हम लोगों को कोई नोटिस आया नहीं था कि मतलब हमें फ़्लाइट कब पकड़नी है, लेकिन हम सरप्राइज थे कि इंडियन एयर फोर्स हमारे लिए वहाँ खड़ी थी. तो हम थैंकफुल हैं इंडियन एयर फोर्स के लिए, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया को, एम्बेसी को, सबको.
One final question: how many people, Indians I'm talking about, must be there?
Pardon?
How many Indians are still there?
I think there are more than 20,000 Indian people over there.
So there you heard Siddharth, the evacuation process, Operation Sindhu is still on, and Indian government is committed to rescue every Indian who has asked for help, and this is the situation here. As you can see, the Indian Air Force people, they are helping the evacuees one by one. They are calling their names. The buses have been provided. All those who have to travel onwards from here, they would be sent through after the due process of immigration. Back to you, Siddharth.
All right, we'll keep taking updates from you on this, Vishal, but as of now, thank you so much. We leave it there. Updates on India's weather now. India Meteorological Department has forecast an increase in rainfall activity with isolated heavy to very heavy falls over northwest India from 25th of June onwards. Heavy to very heavy rainfall activity is likely to continue over many parts of central, east and northeast India during the next 7 days. Besides this, the IMD issued a red alert for extremely heavy rains in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Met Department said conditions are favourable for further advance of southwest monsoon over remaining parts of North Arabian Sea, some parts of Rajasthan, Punjab, some parts of Haryana, Chandigarh and Delhi, remaining parts of West Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh and remaining parts of Jammu during next 2 days. There is likelihood of light to moderate rainfall at most places over northeast, accompanied with thunderstorm, lightning and isolated heavy rainfall during the next 7 days. Monsoon is expected to hit the national capital on Tuesday, a few days earlier than usual, with the India Meteorological Department placing the national capital under a yellow alert for rain and thunderstorms throughout the day. IMD has said that weather conditions are favourable for the monsoon to advance into more parts of Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh and Delhi. Typically, the southwest monsoon reaches Delhi around June 30th. Heavy rain lashed parts of India's financial capital Mumbai last night. The heavy rain comes as Mumbai continues to experience a variable monsoon season, with meteorologists forecasting more scattered showers over the coming days. IMD had issued advisory of heavy to very heavy rainfall at isolated places over West Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal and Sikkim in the next coming days. On Tuesday, there is a possibility of very heavy or heavy rainfall in 24 districts of Madhya Pradesh. A red alert has been issued for Shivpuri. In Shivpuri, more than 8 inches of rainfall is expected in the next 24 hours. Very heavy rainfall of up to 4 inches may occur in Gwalior, Guna, Ashoknagar, Niwari, Tikamgarh, Chhatarpur, Pandurna and Balaghat. Yellow alerts for rainfall have been issued in Bhopal, Jabalpur and other districts. The India Meteorological Department, Ranchi, has issued a detailed alert as Jharkhand braces for a fresh spell of intense monsoon activity. A series of thunderstorms, lightning strikes and heavy rainfall events are likely to impact various parts of the state from today and tomorrow, prompting officials to advise residents to remain alert and take appropriate precautions. Torrential rains have submerged several areas, with waterlogging affecting homes and disrupting life in Ranchi, Kolhan and Santhal regions. There have been many incidents of lightning in the state in which more than half a dozen people have died. Meanwhile, West Indian state of Gujarat witnessed a severe monsoon onslaught on Monday, prompting the closure of schools in several districts, including Surat. Met Department has forecast continued heavy rainfall across the state, issuing yellow alert for June 24. From June 26 and 28, widespread rain with thunderstorms and lightning is expected to continue across the state. June 1975, a radio crackled. A nation held its breath. With one announcement, democracy dimmed and dictatorship took root. The emergency wasn't just a political storm. It was a direct assault on the Indian Constitution, the courts and the citizen. In our next report, we revisit the verdict that shook the government and the silence that followed.
भाइयों और बहनों, राष्ट्रपति जी ने आपातकाल की घोषणा की है।
This announcement marked the beginning of one of the darkest chapters in India's democratic history, a time of unprecedented repression. But what triggered it was a judicial verdict from the Allahabad High Court and the Supreme Court's refusal to fully stay that order. On June 12, 1975, Justice Jagmohan Lal Sinha of the Allahabad High Court delivered a landmark judgment declaring then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's 1971 election from the Rai Bareli constituency null and void due to electoral malpractices. Indira Gandhi appealed to the Supreme Court, where Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer refused to grant a full stay on the High Court's ruling on June 24, 1975. The very next day, the emergency was imposed. What followed was an era of authoritarianism, and democracy in India was pushed to the brink. Fundamental rights guaranteed, equality before law, right to life and personal liberty were suspended immediately after the declaration. By January 1976, Article 19 was also suspended, effectively snatching away the rights of free speech, press, association and peaceful assembly. As the machinery of state suppression kicked in, the judiciary wasn't spared either. Lawyers who dared to speak out in defense of civil liberties were arrested. In March 1976, without any prior notice, 200 chambers of practicing lawyers at Delhi's 30,000 court were demolished, and 43 lawyers were sent to jail. Soon, attention turned to High Court judges who had passed verdicts against the government's excesses. Many were transferred or faced punitive action for their rulings. But the most prominent casualty of judicial independence during the emergency was Justice H.R. Khanna. He was the senior-most judge in the Supreme Court and the natural successor to become the Chief Justice of India. But in the ADM Jabalpur case, where the core issue was the suspension of fundamental rights during emergency, Justice Khanna stood alone in dissent.
जो आतंक का माहौल था उसमें जजों को इतना ज़बरदस्त डराया गया। एन रे का केस पहले से ही चल रहा था, यानी 7-8 जजों को सुपरसीड करके जो एन रे को चीफ जस्टिस बनाया था, तो वैसे भी जुडिशरी डरी हुई थी। तो जबलपुर का एक केस है जिसमें जीने का अधिकार भी जुडिशरी के माध्यम से इंदिरा गांधी सरकार ने नागरिकों से छीन लिया था।
His principal stand cost him dearly. The Indira Gandhi government superseded him and appointed a junior judge, Justice Mirza Hamidullah Beg, as the Chief Justice instead. In protest, Justice Khanna resigned the very same day.
Justice Khanna यह स्वीकार करने के लिए तैयार नहीं थे कि किसी भी हालत में सरकार द्वारा किसी नागरिक से उसके जीने का हक और अदालत में न्याय मांगने का अधिकार यह छीन लिया गया। अपने डिसेंटिंग जजमेंट के लिए जस्टिस खन्ना को क्या कीमत चुकानी पड़ी है, ये बात भारतीय लोकतंत्र के सबसे काले अध्याय के पन्नों में अंकित है।
Indira Gandhi's authoritarian grip extended to the constitution itself, which she amended multiple times during the emergency to consolidate her power. The 38th Amendment took away the judiciary's power to review the emergency. The 39th Amendment barred courts from questioning the election of the Prime Minister altogether. But the most alarming was the 42nd Amendment, often called the mini-constitution, which altered 40 different provisions of the constitution under Article 368. In independent India's 75-year constitutional history, this remains the only amendment that even changed the preamble of the Constitution. The very soul of the Constitution was suffocated during the emergency. Bureau Report, DD India.
The US House's chief administrative officer has officially banned WhatsApp from all government-managed devices used by congressional staffers, citing data security concerns. The notice said the Office of Cybersecurity has deemed WhatsApp a high risk to users due to the lack of transparency in how it protects user data, absence of stored data encryption, and potential security risks involved with its use. Meanwhile, Meta disagreed with the move in the strongest possible terms, a company spokesperson said, noting that the platform provides a higher level of security than the other approved apps. Earlier, the House has banned other apps from staff devices in the past, including the short video app TikTok due to security issues. Online retail giant Amazon will invest $54 billion in the UK over the next 3 years in a bid to kickstart the economy. Prime Minister Keir Starmer met Amazon CEO Andy Jassy last week, in fact, and called this announcement as another major win to Britain's basket. The £40 billion will be used to build 4 distribution centres, creating an estimated 4,000 jobs, and to renovate the historic Bray Film Studios acquired in July 2024. The investment also includes part of £8 billion previously announced in September 2024 for building, operating and maintaining data centres in UK aimed at boosting artificial intelligence computer capacity. Though Amazon is currently under investigation by the UK food regulator, suspected of late payments to food suppliers, if found guilty, Amazon could be fined up to 1% of its annual UK turnover. You're watching DD India News on. Time now for sport, and the Leeds test between India and England is set for a dramatic finish heading into day 5. On day 4, India finished their second innings at 364, setting the hosts a challenging 371 run target to win. At stumps, England had moved cautiously to 21 for no loss, with Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett negotiating the final overs of the day unscathed. They now require another 350 runs on the final day. Earlier in the day, KL Rahul and Rishabh Pant stitched together a 195-run stand for the 4th wicket after the early dismissal of Shubman Gill. Rahul hit his 8th ton, while Pant dazzled with flair and aggression, scoring 118 off 140 deliveries. Despite losing quick wickets at the end, India managed to build a commanding lead. The target of 371 is a record chase in England and sets up an intriguing day 5, with India eyeing early wickets and England hoping to defy history. Rain, however, could yet have a say in the outcome. Former India left-arm spinner Dilip Dshi passed away due to cardiac arrest on Monday, aged 77. Dshi, who bowled with a classical left-armer's action, played for India between 1979 to 83, making debut at the age of 32. He took 114 test wickets in 33 appearances, including 6 5-wicket hauls in the longest format. In 15 ODIs, he took 22 wickets. Dshi also played first-class cricket for Saurashtra, Bengal, Warwickshire and Nottinghamshire. Zimbabwe's Kirsty has officially taken charge as the president of the International Olympic Committee on Monday. Outgoing President Thomas Bach handed over the keys of the Olympic House to the former Olympic swimming champion in a handover ceremony. Coventry was elected as the 10th president of the IOC and the first female president in IOC history, following voting at the 144th IOC session in Costa Navarino, Greece. In March this year, in fact, Kirsty Coventry is former Olympic swimming champion from Zimbabwe and Africa's most decorated Olympian. Legoland inaugurates exhibit of tunnel linking Denmark and Germany. The exhibit featured Lego models of the construction site, including diggers, ships and personnel working on the project. Visitors can now marvel at the intricate recreation of the Fehmarn Belt fixed link, the tunnel that will stretch nearly 18 kilometers beneath the Baltic Sea. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Prasar Bharati from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.